Every course with a content technologist is going to start with some myth busting because there's a lot of bad info out there, especially when it comes to search engine optimization, more commonly known as SEO. I haven't said SEO yet in this course, but that's what we're doing. We are optimizing our website content to be discoverable in search engines primarily. Yes, social media is part of the optimization process, but by adding structure to our website content and publishing content on our website, we're hoping that site becomes more findable on the open web, and that requires a search engine more often. At the Content Technologist, we know that there are myths about SEO, about content optimization, about page structure, about user experience that keep getting repeated over and over again and that keep us from progressing and making better websites and making better content. For example, one of those bad myths is that to rank for something, you need to put as many keywords as possible in your webpage URL. I still see this from major publications where the URL slug is just over optimized. Google actively discourages this, and it's just not necessary. It's not great for a user experience if you have a really long URL with a bunch of random words in it. Our goal with SEO is to provide a better user experience. It's not to trick people into visiting a website so we can then retarget them with ads later or some other such marketing scheme. At the Content Technologists, I don't believe in SEO content or funnels. Those are marketing structures imposed on the open web, but they are not necessarily what we have to do every single time. Our goal with SEO is really to have our good content, which we spent time and brainpower developing, be findable for the audience who is searching for it, and to create a relationship with that audience, with the goal of becoming discoverable in mind. Let's bust some myths. People tend to come to publishing web content from a few different directions, and we'll address 3 of these here. This is a marketing myth. The best way to grow organic search is to put SEO content in the blog so customers visit our website. For those coming at SEO from the side of content marketing, it's likely you think of a certain type of informational content as SEO content. Whether it's listicles, how-tos, or product reviews, SEO content involves creating a slew of content published haphazardly, mostly in the form of blog posts, with one page matching an individual keyword or topic phrase. The content is placed in a single feed called a blog for search engines to crawl and discover. But that information never really interacts with the rest of the website's information architecture. Now, I'm not going to say that building a system of SEO content doesn't work for businesses, because it does when done well. It worked a lot better 10 years ago, but it still works. Sure, you can create SEO content all you want. But what I am going to say is that all content on your website should be discoverable by search and through browsing. And you don't need to keep it locked away in a single folder called blog, organized only by the most recent content, and maybe, if we're lucky, a filter system. If you want audiences, potential customers, potential clients to read and interact with the content you've been building, there are many different ways to build website content aside from the typical website structure of product, services, contact, blog. Especially considering almost no one uses feed readers anymore, I'm not really sure why the term blog even sticks around, except that marketers and entrepreneurs have learned we need to create SEO blogs, and then they just do that without thinking of why or understanding the strategy or understanding that traffic doesn't actually really ever connect to revenue unless you make it. They just make a bunch of content and see if people come, and then they'll get leads. It's effective, but it's also a little bit sloppy, and it makes the web more salesy than it needs to be. There's definitely a habit of groupthink in marketing where we just execute tactics and don't ask why we're building the way we are. And I'm guilty of it too. But what we're going to do with this course is navigate away from that groupthink and into thinking through the information architecture on your website. We're going to look at alternative ways to structure your content so Google search and other natural language processing tools can read it. And more importantly, so that your audience can find it and understand what your content and your company are all about. Another thing marketers don't always get about content, your entire website, including your help and your customer service sections, can contribute to your overall search performance and can show up in search results. You can always block those from search results, But in all honesty, you shouldn't. Your potential customers will look at the quality of your customer service content as a deciding factor in choosing your product over a competing product. Your customer service content does play a role in the entire marketing ecosystem, even though it might be created by another team. And that content, organized wisely, can boost topical authority around other topics that you're trying to reach new customers with in algorithmic search. It's a rising tide lifts all boats thing. Myth. Jacob Nielsen says I should build my website the same as everybody else. If you entered the website world through web development and user experience, you may have heard of a thing called Jacob's Law. According to the excellent resource, US Content Collective, Jacob's Law states that most users spend their time on other apps or websites, and this develops a cognition or memory of an experience in their mind. It's important to remember that Jacob's Law is not a law. It's something a consulting group came up with in the early days of the internet. But the principles in Jacob's Law are basically that people like websites or apps that look like websites or apps they already know. Unfortunately, in user experience and in website design, that maxim has often been interpreted as our website navigation needs to read exactly like every other business in our vertical. That means devs and UX designers rely on those navigational systems just lifted from other websites rather than conducting their own original research to figure out what content audiences want to see, how to think about that content creatively and that organization creatively. We're assuming that our competitor company before us did their homework on their navigation, but do we actually know that they did that research to understand their audience? My experience tells me that no, they didn't. They didn't do any of that research. For website audiences, using Jacob's Law means understanding that your users expect to see a top navigation bar that links to most content on the website. But there's no law that says your navigational labels and structure need to be the same as everyone else's. In fact, it's better for your business and better for Google search if your navigation specifically reflects topics covered on the website. That way, crawlers and people can see what topics you talk about expertly and not videos, solutions, or again, blog. As with all UX research and just all corporate research in general, take anything the big consulting firms say with a grain of salt. Firms like the NN Group provide valuable information, but they tend to heed a lowest common denominator approach that doesn't necessarily include your audience. If you're not building a government or an educational institution website, you can often stray from the expected patterns as long as you know that they serve your audience. Myth. Google hates news publishers and deliberately ranks them low. I don't actually know how Google feels as a company about news publishers. I'm sure as a giant company, there are a wide variety of opinions about whether news should be included in search. Google's interactions with news publishers have always troubled me because they have rarely focused on holistic website optimization and really only zero in on the news tab. But the fact is that when most people Google, they don't click the news tab. I don't click the news tab. I only click news results if they show up first on the organic search. Otherwise, people just look at normal search results. Google builds its search index to preserve information quality. They don't always even look at the newest content. They want to see that you've been authoritative before on different topics. If you're only optimizing for the news tab or Google Discover and not the whole rest of Google and all the other links it contains, you're missing a huge opportunity to show up as an authoritative source in search results. When news publishers only focus on the most recent news and the homepage instead of the full website experience, everybody suffers. News publishers are doing themselves a disservice by not organizing their content archives for authority and discovery. News publishers have a tendency to focus on what's new and relevant. That is, what the news is. That's the nature of the business. But news publishers over-optimize for what's happening on a given day on Twitter coverage, push notifications, Google News, or individual landing pages, and not think about how that content exists in the larger entity of their website. And I get it, news publishers have limited resources. They already are working on maintaining a print archive, and you can't optimize everything. Totally get it. But optimizing your historical content according to topics is the tide that lifts all boats. And I say this a lot. your news content will perform better if your website is organized for topical discovery. And that's what this course is going to teach you. You're going to learn how to use the content you already have, prepare your newest content for future discovery, and organize your existing content archive to make better, more discoverable pages that meet your audience's needs. They find you, discover you, recommend you, post about you, and so on. Let's get rid of all those myths and focus on what discovery even means.